Hey there. What's up?
Not much. Just trying to study for the AP government exam.
Are you studying or studying?
Really? I'm studying. The FRQs are going to kill me.
Me too. Hey, let me help you study. I'll ask you some further questions and you try to answer them.
Awesome.
Okay. Number 1. The United States Constitution has endured for more than 2 centuries as the framework of the government. However, the meaning of the Constitution has been changed both by formal and informal methods. Identify 2 formal methods for adding amendments to the Constitution.
Wow. That one's easy. By 2/3 vote in both houses of Congress, and by conventions in 3/4 of the states.
Maybe this part will be harder then. Describe 2 informal methods that have been used to change the meaning of the Constitution. Provide 1 specific example for each informal method you describe.
Okay, I've got this. One method is through the courts, like in when the McCulloch versus Maryland case determined the reaches of Congress through the necessary and proper clause. The second method is through the development of political customs or traditions. This is like how Congress can reject a Supreme Court justice candidate if the senator from the candidate's state does not approve of the candidate.
Good. One last one. Explain why informal methods are used more often than the formal amendment process.
Because it's harder to amend the Constitution formally. With formal amending, congressmen have to follow all sorts of rules and regulations to get the amendment passed. With the informal process, though, it only takes a ruling by the Supreme Court on a case or a tradition in Congress to change the Constitution's meaning. All right, now it's my turn to ask you one.
Come at me, bro.
Look at that graph in your hand. It shows the re-election rates for incumbents in the House and Senate. Identify 2 patterns displayed in the graph.
Well, the House typically has a higher incumbency rate than the Senate, and Senate incumbency rates have increased over time.
Good. Now, identify 2 factors that contribute to the incumbency advantage. Explain how each factor contributes to the incumbency advantage.
The names of the incumbents are usually more well known to the public than those of the challenger, so the voters go with the name they know rather than something that hasn't been tried yet. Also, incumbents have experience in Congress and they can claim that they can do a better service to the people because they know how Congress works and have already gained the respect of their peers.
Go ahead and discuss one consequence of incumbency advantage for the United States political process then.
You get congressmen with more established relations with interest groups, which means that the views with the interest groups are more likely to enter into the legislation approved by that congressman. So, now question 3. Many scholars and observers have argued that the ratification of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution has become the single most important act in all of United States politics. Identify which provision of this amendment was applied in Brown v. Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas, Baker v. Carr, or Regents of the University of California v. Back. For the case you select, explain the significance of the decision in United States politics.
Brown versus the Board of Education applied the equal protection under the law provision when the court ruled that the segregation of schools was in fact unequal in quality. This ruling helped to fuel the civil rights movement.
You're actually starting to sound smart.
Hey!
So, which provision was applied in Mapp versus Ohio, Gideon versus Wainwright, or Miranda versus Arizona? For the case you select, explain the significance of the decision in untied states politics.
Miranda versus Arizona applied the due process provision when the court ruled that law officials must advise a suspect against committing self-incrimination acts by reminding them of the right to remain silent and have an attorney.
So what did that decision do for United States politics?
It gave us something for criminals to shout that they know at the police on cops.
No. How about that it is now much easier for suspects to get out of charges because they don't go and say something stupid, and they have a lawyer to defend them?
Fine then. Last one. Explain how divided government, weak party discipline, and growth in the number of interest groups and political action committees, PACs, makes it difficult for the federal government to enact public policy. Provide one example for each explanation.
A divided government, like when the presidency and Congress are controlled by different parties, makes it harder to enact public policy because if one party dislikes the other party's view on the policy, they will vote against the bill. With weak party discipline, there is crossover voting, with members of one party voting for agenda items that would more generally be supported by members of the other party. More often than not, this makes it difficult for the federal government to appeal to a particular party to push the legislation through, and must find other methods of getting the legislation passed. Finally, with growth and the number of interest groups and PACs, there can be groups of opposing interests working on congressmen for their votes, which may create mixed voting in the House and Senate, and cause a bill to fail.
Great job.
Thanks. I feel so much more prepared for the test now. We are going to ace it.
You betcha. See you at the exam.